Hey kids, here I am again. Before I start into this little housekeeping, this weekend, one night only, I'll be at the Chuckle Factory in Akron. If you're in the area, stop in and see me. Pretty good show. I of course will be doing comedy, and I'll be having a little musical break provided by Paul Schaefer and the band. So come out and see us. But what we're really here to talk about, I decided to do a series, and I'm not going to do them in order. I'll break them up, they'll be scattered around, but I'm thinking my favorite things. And I thought, movies, books, TV shows, music. And today I thought I'd start with movies. Now, one of the things, as you've probably noticed from my style, I don't really like to prepare for these talks. I'll have ideas in my head, but then I'll just go, and that's why I always pretty much every time after I do one, I think of stuff that I forgot to mention. But I'd rather be off the cuff. Although with this, I decided to do a little bit of preparing just so I'd remember categories I wanted to hit and stuff like that. But just to show how well organized I am, these are what my notes look like. I sat here and I thought of things off the top of my head and jotted stuff down just so I'd hit them. So I thought I'd do some categories, and obviously you watch this and you're going to say, how could he not mention this movie? How could he not mention this or that? And I'll even say it afterwards, because I always hate when, it's like, name your top 5 movies or whatever. And I can never think of it. I'll come up with 5, and then afterwards it's like, how did I not include Ernest Goes to College, or stuff like that. So anyway, you're going to have that, and you're going to disagree with me, but who cares? You know what they say, get your own show. So I thought I'd start off with Christmas movies. I'll tell you, one of my favorite stories of all time. I've read the book several times, and I love the movies. Christmas Carol, Charles Dickens, and I various versions of it. Some of them they call it Scrooge, some they call them Christmas Carol. I think my favorite is still always the Alistair Sim version. That's like 1951 or something. But they did a TV version one time with George C. Scott that was really good. And I always liked Mr. Magoo. He only funny thing about the Mr. Magoo version is they didn't do the ghost in order. I forget now exactly. I think they did present, then past, instead of past, present, future thing. But it was always good, and I liked the songs they made for it. Yeah, all the I didn't even write down one of the best Christmas movies. You gotta have The Grinch Who Stole Christmas, the original one, the cartoon version with Boris Karloff's voice, not that ridiculous thing with that actor that I hate. And I know Courtney's with me on this one. Let me see. There's a lot of Christmas movies I can mention. One of my exceptions to my hate Will Ferrell movies is I liked Elf. It was pretty good, and the Santa Claus, Tim Allen. There's a lot of them, but my favorite of all time is A lot of people will disagree with me, but it's Love Actually. Oh, you thought I was going to say Die Hard, didn't you? I'm one of those people that never decide if Die Hard's a Christmas movie. But Love Actually, I like it because it's got all those interconnected stories, you know, and it's not totally a Christmas movie, but it revolves around Christmas, and you know, and each of the story is about a different kind of love. You got a couple who meet for the first time. You have an old married couple. You have a father and his stepson, and it's like anyway. So that's Christmas movies. Now here's one, westerns. I could do a 1 hour video just talking about westerns. I mean, you could do a video just rating John Wayne westerns in order, Clint Eastwood westerns in order. But I just off the top of my head thought of some, and if you're going to say Clint Eastwood, you got your Unforgiven. That's probably his best one. That was great. And of course, Pale Rider. All his spaghetti westerns were a lot of fun. And John Wayne, I think my favorite of his would probably be The Cowboys. But then there's other westerns like I was just talking to someone today about I always liked Support Your Local Gunfighter with James Garner. Actually, I think the first one was Support Your Local Sheriff. There were two. They sort of like remade it, almost the same movie. Like John Wayne did that a couple of times with some of his movies where they just changed the story slightly, but it was the exact same thing, but they had a different drunk deputy and that kind of thing. But anyway, Support Your Local Gunfighter. Jack Elam was hilarious in that. But I think my favorite Western will surprise people because it would never make it, I think, on one of the top lists that critics would pick and that. And really, objectively, it's not probably like the best, the most well done, but I enjoyed it. It's Silverado. I looked up I think that's one I looked up the date for. It was 1985. It had Kevin Kline, Kevin Costner, Danny Glover, but I liked it because it's sort of like they were redoing kind of a 50s style Western, but they updated, and it was like a fun one. And it was, the kind of classic tale of, having to beat the bad guys that in town. And before I get off Westerns, you can't get off the Westerns without talking about old Jimmy Stewart movies and Randolph Scott and Audie Murphy, the greats. But let's move on because there's a lot just skipping down my list. One thing I wanted to mention quick is silent movies. Now, of course, I don't think any of us have watched a lot of silent movies, but I wanted to mention, I watched some. And when you talk about the greats of silent movies, people are going to always say Charlie Chaplin. And of course, he was brilliant. And Laurel and Hardy, although I think they got better once they could do sound. But if you ever want to delve into silent movies, my favorite was Harold Lloyd. I just thought he was a little special. Well, comedy, it's another category you could just spend a lot of time talking about. And I just wrote stuff down off the top of my head, but I loved Abbott and Costello movies. And I think my favorite might have been Abbott and Costello Meet Frankenstein. But those guys were, and whenever any of their movies, when they do Who's on First, or I always like there's that one where Costello plays the vacuum salesman, and he I forget exactly how it is now, but he like it's like 7 times 17 equals 21 or something, But that kind of also Mel Brooks. I think my favorite Mel Brooks is Blazing Saddles because I always liked the way Mel would put social satire. He would like hide it in comedy. But that movie had a lot of it made fun of like racism and stuff. Um, but and then of course like you had Young Frankenstein and that he had like I did not like Spaceballs. I'm sorry guys, I did not like Spaceballs. Also in comedy, always like some of the old like Cary Grant. He did some great old screwball comedy types and that. And I, mean, I wrote down Coming to America, Eddie Murphy. That was hilarious. Um, Airplane. You gotta love Airplane because it was just so ridiculous. But the one I wrote down for that I thought of the best when you talk about ridiculous, Monty Python and the Holy Grail. I mean, what is better than knights pretending to ride a horse across the field while a guy's walking behind them, clicking coconut shells together to make the horse noise? And then, of course, the whole thing: where'd you get the coconuts? Was that an African sparrow or an European sparrow, and all that? So they were. Let's see, I hit westerns, right? Oh, musicals, another good genre. Uh, I'm not real big on the old, 50s musicals and stuff. Even though I was in Oklahoma when I was in college, the musical, not the state. Um, but you know, I, the ones I like is I think two of them with the best music. They both have Hugh Jackman. Is Les Mis, that has his real stirring songs, and The Greatest Showman. I mean, I think one of the greatest songs in a musical ever is "This Is Me." That's a great one. Um, I always, like. I'm almost not sure if we should call Across the Universe a musical, but I like the way they took the Beatles songs and they reworked some of them, but it was great because the songs were of the era of the story and they told the story, you know. There's, and if you've never seen it, the very end part, where all you need is love, that that scene will get you. But my favorite musical, of course, it has good music, but I love the story of it, is Fiddler on the Roof because it tells the journey of this guy. Well, the first song he does, If I Were a Rich Man, it's a little fantasy of him thinking. But early on, he does song Tradition. And that's like what he's all about and what his people are all about. Tradition, tradition. And in the whole movie, it goes on to where tradition is being chipped away by his three daughters. First, you got the oldest daughter, who is now of marriageable age, and the matchmaker is setting her up with this butcher who's like 3 times her age, but they figure that's a good match, because she'll never starve in that. And meanwhile, she wants to marry the guy she's in love with, and it's like, oh my God, she wants to make her own connect, and that's like a little break from tradition. And then the second daughter is marrying this guy who's like a radical. He is fighting against the Stalinist regime and that, not with weapons, but he's out there talking out and that, and it took a bit for him to let the middle daughter go with this guy. But then finally, the youngest daughter, his baby, she falls in love with a Christian. And that's just like too much for poor Tevye. It's like, no, he cannot accept that until at the very end of the movie, he does. He forgives her and accepts her, even though he doesn't quite say it to her directly, but lets her know that she's still his daughter. So that takes care of this. I wrote a couple down. Some more extensive notes here. You can see that very well organized. Sci-fi. Another category you could go on with ever. Now, I always enjoyed those old sci-fi. They're just fun to watch. It's like the ones like in the 50s. You had all the ones that, because of the atomic bomb thing and you had like giant ants and giant bees and giant crabs. Those were always fun. You had, another good one, like after The Thing was good. But for, I don't even, did I say sci-fi? I kind of slipped into horror here, I think. Yeah, I'm on horror now because that's what I was thinking with the giant, although those were science fiction with the giant bees and all that. But actually, I was thinking of them more in the horror category. And you have all the old classic Frankensteins and stuff. But for the best horror of what I found really scary, of course, Alfred Hitchcock's always good. Although, they usually call him suspense. But, I mean, when you got birds attacking people, that's horror. And Psycho is just classic, The one, Stephen King, especially The Shining. Anytime you have like little killer kids, they always get me. And of course, Jack Nicholson, he's really good as a psycho because it's kind of typecasting. And two, though, that I put down, there's the ones that scared me the most. Jaws and The Exorcist. Man, that movie really creeped me out. Okay, let's move into sci-fi, which is related. For that, again, those old ones from the 50s and that, where they had those cardboard sets and stuff, and a lot of their science was really off, but they were fun to watch, and with the rubber masked aliens and all that. One of my early favorites for sci-fi would be The Day the Earth Stood Still, because that's one that a lot of social commentary in that, and hey, Klaatu Barada Nikto, dudes. Also, a little more modern one I like that, just a lot of fun, Galaxy Quest. It was such a good send-up of Star Trek. And, you could recognize the characters. I mean, you knew Tim Allen was William Shatner, And I always liked in there, it was like, I forget the one character's name, Guy. It was Guy, who was, he was just there because he had been like some old bit player on the show. And, he was their red shirt, and they went down on that one planet, and they were running away from some kind of creatures. And I remember, I think it was Sigourney Weaver said, "Come on, we better get out of here before Guy gets killed," because it's like, he was the sacrificial lamb of the party. But But also, okay, ID4, one of my favorites. I rewatch that all the time. But if we're going to talk best science fiction movies, gotta go Star Wars, right? And of course, the first Star Wars, you gotta give it credit because it started the whole thing. But I think the best of them was probably Empire Strikes Back. I think it had all the elements to it. Hey, speaking of elements, Fifth Element, that was a good one. So that's the last category I wrote down. I know there's like other categories I could do. I put Mafia, you know, always like a good Mafia movie. And I don't know, like the old criminal ones with, Cagney and stuff were okay, but not my favorites. The top for them, Goodfellas, was of course a good one. And it's one that really was taken from true story because it came from a book written by the guy who was the Ray Liotta character. But you know what the best has got to be? Godfather. And again, similar to with Star Wars, you got to give the first one credit, Godfather, because it really started a lot, It had all the imitators that came after it, and of course it was from Mario Puzo's book. But when you look at them objectively, I think Godfather 2 was the best, just the best mafia movie of all time. But one thing about those mafia movies too, if you get Robert De Niro in there, half the work is done. You've already got, it's going to be a good movie from there. Then once you add in good writing and that, then you get a great movie. Of course, one of the best scenes of all time of any mafia movie is got to be Joe Pesci's with, "You think I'm funny? What? You think I'm funny? I make you laugh?" That was a good one. But anyway, this is getting awful long. I think I hit the basics of everything I wanted to talk about. I could do, part 2, 3, 4, 5 of movies, but that would get boring. But, this is the kind of thing could talk about all night. And you're certainly welcome to throw anything in the comments you want about movies you love, movies you think I should have talked about, or any of that stuff. Why you think Jar Jar Binks was a better character than Darth Vader, just so everybody could laugh at you and call you an idiot. That's about it. I mean, this is way too long, so I'll just say 2 things. One, to make Toby happy, remember to like and subscribe. And the other thing is, peace out.